How's everyone doing? Welcome back to In Depth with David, and I am going to be going through my 2020 NFL playoffs predictions. It's been an interesting year, lots of crazy times, and COVID has definitely played a part in it, but I'm very excited to break down my playoff bracket for you guys. So, we will be starting with the AFC side, and we will be moving on to the NFC. So, first game that I will be talking about is the Browns versus Steelers wildcard game, and I am picking the Steelers to win this just simply because of the fact that they are simply better than the Browns, and it does not help that the Browns will be without their head coach, Stefanski. Baker Mayfield did have a good year this year with 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins did well filling in for Odell Beckham Jr. Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson really good on the defensive side of the ball, but the Steelers are just too good. And yes, they did have a little bit of a rough patch to end the year, only winning one of their final 5 games. But Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson are all on fire. On the defensive end, TJ Watt's the sack king. Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, Minkah Fitzpatrick all did their thing this year. And the Steelers beat them really bad early in this season, and they almost beat them this past Sunday with their second and third stringers against the Browns, and I'm just picking them to win. So the Steelers will be moving on to the divisional round, in my opinion. And then the next game that I will be covering is the Colts and the Bills, and I am picking the Bills to win this game simply because they are the hottest team in the league right now. Even though the Colts offense is really good with Jonathan Taylor, their rookie Michael Pittman Jr. put together a solid campaign, and T.Y. Hilton had another quietly good year. Even Phillip Rivers at age 39 had a good season with 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. The Colts did have the 10th best defense. Darius Leonard, great player on that side of the ball, but the Bills are just going off right now. Josh Allen, potential MVP candidate, 37 touchdowns, 10 interception campaign. Stephon Diggs had a great first year in Buffalo. Cole Beasley, Singletary, all good. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Tremaine Edmonds, Tre'Davious White, and Jerry Hughes all had good seasons. And all 7 of their final wins were by double digits, so they're just on a tear right now, and I expect them to move on. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens versus Tennessee Titans wildcard game. Now, this is probably the most intriguing game of the wildcard games that we will be seeing on Super Wildcard Weekend, just because of how evenly matched these two teams are. And honestly, it could go either way, but I'm going to be personally picking the Ravens to win this game, because even though the Titans did have a good season, Tannehill, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, I feel like he's very underrated, and he's really turned around his career after that somewhat shaky stint in Miami. Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns in the regular season. Great year for him once again. A.J. Brown and Corey Davis also did good, but their defense, the Titans' defense, was 24th ranked. It's the worst of all the teams that made the playoffs. Adoree Jackson was limited the regular season. Butler's decent. He's gotten better since his beginning time, since when he first got to Tennessee, but he's nowhere near where he was in New England. And the fact that they struggled all season against many mediocre teams such as the Broncos, Jaguars, Vikings, Cincinnati, and Houston 2 times just makes it really tough for me to pick the Titans in this game. And also because of the fact that Lamar Jackson has been playing really well in these last few weeks, and he's put together another solid campaign with 26 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. J.K. Dobbins, Mark Andrews also had good campaigns. They have the second best defense in the league. Yannick Ngakoue, good start. Even though he slowed down towards the end, he still put together a solid campaign with 8 sacks. Marlon Humphrey, can't say enough good things about him as well on defense. And even though the Titans got the best of them in the regular season matchup, in that game where they won in an overtime thriller, I think the Ravens are going to win because they are the second hottest team in the league right now behind the Bills, who I previously mentioned. Now I'm going to switch over to the NFC's wildcard games, and first we have the Washington football team and the Bucs, which I will be covering, and I'm going to pick the Bucs to win this game. I think it might be closer than people expect, but the Bucs are just the Bucs. The football team's been really putting it together since they put in Alex Smith as a starter, winning 4 or 5 games with him taking snaps under center. Even though he's not putting together the best stats, you just can't help but root for the guy. He went from almost having his leg amputated and potentially dying to coming back on the football field two years later and just leading his team to the playoffs. So it's hard to not root for that. Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, good campaigns again. Chase Young had a good rookie campaign. John Bostic, Fuller had career years, but the Bucks are just really putting it together. They had a little bit of a shaky stint in the middle of the season. They were 1-7-5, but they were able to win their final 4 games. Tom Brady, I mean, as a Patriots fan, it hurt to see him go, but I can't help but admire the greatness still all the way down in Tampa Bay. 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions at age 43. Antonio Brown's coming live just at the right time when they lost Mike Evans, who's going to be limited in this game if he plays. Godwin, another great receiver. Ronald Jones, awesome. Even Scotty Miller was able to get involved at times in this campaign. They had the best offense on paper left in the playoffs, in my opinion. They had the 8th best defense. They have veterans like Jason Pierre-Paul, who put together a great season with 9 sacks. Ndamukong Suh also had a good season, and they're the number 1 run defense for the 2nd straight year, so I'm picking them to move on. Moving on to the next wildcard game, we have the Chicago Bears versus the New Orleans Saints. And Trubisky, he did okay this season when he stepped in. He just still hasn't lived up to what the Bears expected from him when they drafted him back in 2017. 16 touchdowns and 8 picks, not what they hoped for. Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, both had good seasons. Jimmy Graham, he's getting up there in age, and he's not the player he once was in New Orleans, but he had an okay campaign. On the defensive side, Eddie Jackson and Khalil Mack are still good, but their offense is just what's really weighing them down. They have a 30th ranked offense that's just not good at all. So that's why I'm picking the Saints to win this game with ease. Breeze, even though he only played in 12 games because of his injuries, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. It's a good ratio at age 41. If Camaro's playing, they're going to be really, really flourishing on offense. Michael Thomas, even though he had a down year, is very hampered with injuries. He'll be there. Emmanuel Sanders had a great season. They have a very balanced team, the 4th-ranked offense and the 5th-ranked defense. And even though Lattimore regressed on the defensive side, Alexander and Janoris Jenkins are key playmakers, so that'll be enough to pick up the slack, and I'm picking the Saints to move on. The Rams versus Seahawks game. This could get really interesting, depending on if Jared Goff is available to play. I am personally not too high on Jared Goff. 20 touchdown, 13 interception season. Decent numbers. Cooper Kupp did well. Robert Woods did good. They do have the number 1 ranked defense. Aaron Donald, just another amazing campaign with 13.5 sacks. Leonard Floyd with 10.5 sacks. Jalen Ramsey plays well, but Goff's play is what really hurts them. So that is why I have to pick Seattle to move on in this game, regardless of if Goff plays or not. Russell Wilson just having an excellent season, another MVP-type season with 40 touchdowns and 13 picks. DK Metcalf obviously put together an excellent second season in the NFL. Tyler Lockett also did well. Blitz boy Jamal Adams had 9.5 sacks, and Bobby Wagner put together another okay season, so I just think that's going to be too much for the Rams, and I'm picking the Seahawks to move on. Moving back to the AFC, we're going to go over the divisional round on that side. So in my hypothetical predictions, the Steelers and Bills will be facing each other. And I'm going to be picking the Buffalo Bills to move on. The Bills dominated them in the regular season game when they faced off against each other, and they got hot when the Steelers cooled off, so I just think that's going to be the deciding factor. Nelson and Fitzpatrick for the Steelers on the defensive side are going to have their hands full with the receiving corps of Diggs and Beasley and John Brown. So I think Josh Allen's just going to be able to go to town on that Steelers defense, and they're going to be able to put up a lot of points against the Steelers. So I'm picking the Bills to move on in that game. And then on the other side in the AFC for the divisional round, we have the Ravens and the Chiefs. And I am picking the Chiefs to win. The Chiefs put together another solid campaign, earning a first-round bye with a 14-2 season. Mahomes had 38 touchdowns and 6 picks. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce both surpassed 1,000 receiving yards easily. Chris Jones on the defensive side had 7.5 sacks. Frank Clark did well again. Tyrann Mathieu was too much to handle, got a lot of interceptions. And I think the Honey Badger's going to be too much to handle for Lamar. And Marlon Humphrey is going to have his hands full with the defense. Harbaugh going to have to do a masterful job game planning, but I think it's just going to be the same result as Week 3 in this season. The Chiefs beat them easily, and I think the Chiefs are going to beat them easily again in the playoffs. So the AFC Championship game, in my opinion, is going to come down to the Bills versus the Chiefs. Now switching back over to the NFC's divisional matchups, we have the Seahawks versus the Saints. And I'm going to say that the Seahawks will upset the Saints, and the Saints are going to lay another egg prematurely in the playoffs. The Seahawks are going to take advantage of a regressing secondary, as I mentioned previously, with Lattimore not having as good of a season. And Wilson is going to pull off some more playoff magic reminiscent to his first few years in the league. And Lattimore just going to have his hands full. I mean, he got toasted by Ridley when they faced the Falcons in the regular season, allowed him to get 105 yards receiving. Just not a typical year from him, and he's going to have problems against Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, in my opinion, so I'm picking the Seahawks to move on. And now potentially the best, most exciting possible game in the playoffs comes in the NFC divisional round, where we finally get a playoff matchup with Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers when it comes to the Bucs and the Packers. I am picking the Packers to win this game in a nail-biter, and the David Bakhtiari loss for Green Bay is really going to sting, especially against the top run defense and the 8th overall ranked defense. But Aaron Rodgers just had another amazing year, probably going to win the MVP in my opinion with 48 touchdowns and 5 picks. Devontae Adams just keeps getting better. He's so underrated and underappreciated as probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. And that's just going to be too much for the inexperienced Bucs secondary of Winfield Jr. and Jamel Dean. Jair Alexander and Amos, they're going to have their hands full with the Bucs wide receivers, so the Bucs aren't going to go down with the fight, and I think this is going to be a high-scoring game with both teams scoring in maybe the mid to high 30s, possibly 40s. It's going to be a shootout, but I think Green Bay is going to pull out the win. And that will leave us with the Green Bay Packers and the Seahawks to decide who comes out of the NFC to represent that side in the Super Bowl. So flipping back over to the AFC Championship, coming down to the Chiefs versus the Bills. I think the Chiefs are going to head to the Super Bowl for the second straight year. This will be a interesting game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, and both sides are going to be frustrating each other. But I just think due to Mahomes' experience already in the playoffs, this is going to be his third straight AFC Championship game. Same group of guys that they've had for the last few years. I think that's just going to prove to be the difference against an inexperienced but potentially amazing group in Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and company. Obviously, Sean McDermott as well has not gone too far in the playoffs in his career so far, but I just think the Chiefs' experience is going to lead them back to the Super Bowl again, even though the Bills are going to put up a good fight. And as a quick side note, again, I think it'll be a low-scoring game, but the Chiefs, again, will just be able to pull away in the fourth. And then the Seahawks versus Packers. I have the Packers avenging their 2014 NFC Championship loss. I think they're just going to shut down Wilson and the whole offense, and I expect them to win easily. So I'm picking Green Bay to move on to the Super Bowl. We are going to get a Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl. And in this hypothetical Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Packers, I have the Packers winning their first Super Bowl in a decade, actually. I think Adams and Rodgers are both going to do well. I think they're going to do a great job of taking Tyreek Hill out of the game with players like Jair Alexander, as I mentioned earlier, and Amos. Mahomes is still going to compete, but I just think that the Packers' game plan is going to be too good, and they're going to pretty much lead for the whole game. The Chiefs are going to put up a fight at the end, but it'll be too little too late. So I'm having the Green Bay Packers beat their Super Bowl champions for the 2020 NFL season. So that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the playoffs. It's going to be a crazy one. Anything can happen. I feel like there's a lot of good teams in the postseason this year. The new format obviously makes things a lot more interesting, so we'll see what happens. All right, take it easy, guys. This is In Depth with David. Have a good one.